Good evening and welcome to Open Minds. This evening in the UK, it is this evening here. I have a very special guest. We've had a conversation on Inception podcast, and my God, it was a conversation. And I know it's going to be another one today. This evening, I have the wonderful, I'm not going to say your surname, Randy. It's Randy. Randy,
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Randy.
Go on, and the surname.
Okay, my name is Randy Veitenheimer, all right?
Yeah.
And it's been that way for a long time. So,
You're in one of those moods, aren't you? I just know.
Oh, yeah. I'm always up for this one.
Yeah,
Right.
you are. You knew it was me again. You thought, right, I'm
Yeah.
ready for her this time. I'm ready. We're
Right.
going to have fun. We are going to have fun, but it's going to be interesting for the audience because, Randy, you're going to share in this show your spiritual journey and where it's taken you, any missions you thought you might had or any aspirations that you achieved and how that all rolled out over your very young age. So we go back. Where did your spiritual journey begin for you?
I think it begins with memory because really that's all we have at any given point.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a journey down memory lane, I guess.
Yeah, it's a long one, isn't it? I know. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it starts with dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember a very early age, apoplectic dreams, right? The end of the universe, because we were being programmed constantly during the early 50s with the threat of nuclear annihilation. And being possessed of a vivid imagination, it's like, here's the concept and run with it, okay? And so not having any kind of language or experience to relate that to, you create the whole thing in your mind.
Yeah.
And really that's the source of imagination. It's a source of creativity, that journeying outward. And so I remember things like that, being terrified at an early age. Formative factors, getting beat all the time. A lot of people have that one.
Yeah.
When you look at it as just a subset.
Yeah.
And everything from poverty to whatever gets thrown at you.
Yeah.
Lack of food and living conditions. And what that does is force you out of this reality. Or it becomes the impulse to escape this one.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Coming from similar backgrounds to you, it does either escape, you try to escape, or it forces you, it pushes you that, I've got to do something. And that is like a catalyst.
Yes. And so one of the things I rail against is escaping this reality. This reality is given to you. So really the only thing you can do in life is increase your ability to interact, not drug and alcohol and psychotic breaks and divorces and whatever else that can take you out of this reality. Because if you're born to this reality, it's like you don't want to miss out. So they call it FOMO, fear of missing out. And I would guess that at an early age, I had a fear of missing out, literally like sleeping or anything that would take me out of whatever reality that was going on around me. And so the other part is I'm guilty of intense curiosity.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm curious one. Yeah, I know that one.
I came across the term autodidactic, and I think that applies me as somebody who is constantly seeking knowledge.
Yeah.
And so even at an early age, I started reading. And so reading became not an escape, but kind of like an access hatch. It's a way to accumulate knowledge you don't have. That's the way.
Yeah.
And of course, that gets into what I call discernment.
Yeah.
And so one of the probably greatest things that ever happened to me is the urge to find discernment of the truth.
Yeah.
And to avoid what's called spiritual naivety.
Yeah.
And so I was guilty of spiritual naivety, but not to any great degree, meaning I was real good at joining something and looking at it and learning from it, but not being that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, yeah.
And that's a big difference, because it's easy to subsume the self into a religion or a politic or an identity that has nothing to do with you. It's what I call, it's truly the void of the self.
Yeah.
Where you abandon the self to somebody else's ideas of who or what you are.
Yeah, no, can I just hold you on that? That is a very, for many that I've interviewed on the shows, it's a common thing. And for myself, I joined everything. I didn't stay for long, but I joined research, studied anything and anything. A group of people with, could be belief systems, could be set principles, concepts, and I'm in there, and then I went off, so it was, but I took from each one something.
Right, exactly.
And did you find, because in my case, I kept saying, because of the experiences before, I never knew what was true, and everything seemed to be a lie when I was younger. So I was searching for this truth. So I would think something was true and then find out it's not true. And it went on like that. And I found, did you find as you went through learning different things, but not being part of it, you said, this is not true? No, doesn't resonate with whatever my truth is going to be, because we don't know at the time, do we?
Right. Yeah. One of the, another defining kind of characteristic is that I seem to have a choice. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yes, that's true.
Come to realize that. And what that choice does is when you step outside yourself and step outside of belief and be able to go, I can look at this and I can know things that apparently these people don't know.
Yeah.
And so this all occurred prior to about 8 years old, we'll call it. And then around 8 or 9, I would read. I would go to the library and pull 15 books and bring them home and bring them back the next day. And but one of the things that occurred kind of early on is I picked up a copy of Colin Wilson, The Outsider. Now, there's lots of books called.
I've read that, but I'm aware of it. I haven't read it, but I'm aware of it.
And in the book, I think I probably laid it down after page 15 or 20 or whatever, but there's one article in there or one paragraph. And the 12-year-old boy says he's sitting at the dinner table, but actually he's outside looking in the window at everybody at the dinner table and what else going on. And so I had that experience. I had that experience of bilocation of consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. And so terms like remote viewing and things like that, they're very poor.
Back in the day.
Yeah, they're poor efforts at bilocation of the consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that shocked me because I didn't think there was anybody else that knew that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that happens is you come upon revelation that you know something that other people don't. Right? And of course, when you get out in the world and the more you expand your interest, the more you find people that know things you know or know things you didn't know.
Yeah.
So I would say that was a revelation that occurred. The apoplectic dream, apoplectic dreams, whatever you call them. And then
I mean, for a young person, I mean, my childhood was different. I was like psychic, seeing dead people and doing all the psychic, whatever we do. So I went through that more so, and then my knowledge seeking didn't start until round about, I'd say 17. It was when I got away from home, actually, when I escaped one place and went into another, a marriage. However, that I was more the things that people seem to seek today to enhance, that are enhancing. I was in that sort of world at that moment, but not in the reality. Very similar to you, and it wasn't till in my late teens did I start this avid, like, where is it? Where's the truth? And researching and meeting people that weren't quite like-minded, but we could have a conversation. So I didn't realize at the time, obviously we don't, that I was then shifting my reality to attract towards me by doing that act. Does that make sense to you? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And on the psychic part of it, that was another aspect that developed about the same time.
Yeah.
Back then, there was things called party lines on the telephones. The kids don't have any idea, but
is that where? Hold on, because we had it in the UK. Because I'm slightly mature here. That you pick up. My parent had one of those brick house phones, and then you'd hear someone else talking.
Right.
That's is that in America a party?
Yes, okay. and there would be 4 party lines, 8 party lines. I mean, it was crazy. And but one of the things that happened is I grew up in a family and not much money or food or whatever. And so if you got up from the table, you lost your food. Okay. So we would take turns on whose turn it was to answer the phone or the door. And so I developed a skill to be able to go, the phone's ringing and it's for dad or it's for mom or it's for my sister or brother.
Yeah.
And I was correct. I was being truthful, right? Not being right, being truthful.
Yeah.
And then that I wasn't beat for that. I wasn't exercised or anything. And so they thought it was funny that I would know that. So that was always a source of amusement.
Yeah.
And there was no negativity to being psychic. Okay.
It's amazing. I had the opposite. I had negativity for being psychic and diagnosed with schizophrenia and all the rest. So, I always find it amazing how we can be polarities of each other in an experience, and one gets it this way, but that's the way it should be, I suppose. There you go. Yeah, but well, at least that was good. You didn't get, beat up for being psychic.
No. And in fact, it became even more, I developed it as a skill.
Yeah.
Because again, around food, I'd go, Mom, Uncle Ike's coming to dinner, set at another place at the table. And 5 minutes later to be a knock on the door.
There you go. Yeah.
And so I got to where I started exploring that portion of the universe that most people have no conscious experience of. Yeah. And I've pursued that ever since.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving right along, and then formative experiences. I grew up in Tecumseh, Oklahoma, and on Indian reservations, and there's not a lot of access. So imagine that becomes a key. But somehow I ended up at early age with Chuang Tzu, Genius of the Absurd, and I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation.
I didn't even understand a word you said. So you butcher away. Don't worry. I'm English.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Chuang Tzu or Chang Zi. I mean, there's different ways of pronouncing it. But Genius of the Absurd was a little book of Chinese aphorisms. Mm-hmm. And I would pick up that book and read it, and I would throw it because I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand. And it's a storytelling method of education.
Yeah.
I'm Native American, Potawatomi tribe. And we do the same thing. We educate by stories.
Yes.
And you're allowed to turn around and examine that story for what's important for you.
Yeah.
And so again, that became a method which I've moved through the universe, right? To examine the stories of religions, politics, relationships, everything that goes along, but examine it from my point of view, like you say, of what's important to me, or what resonates. Years later, I picked up the book and I would laugh as I worked my way through it because it didn't bother me. I understood everything they were trying to teach you. And part of that came out, all the fighting I did as a young. After that, I picked up Chinese martial arts.
Yeah.
And I studied with a grandmaster from China, starting when I was 18. And he is now the Supreme Grandmaster of China, whatever, and still alive, still a friend. And so that set me on a path of learning not just Chinese martial arts, but Japanese martial arts. Here we go again. I wasn't wedded to any one system.
Yeah.
And so I have practiced that and taught that since the early 70s.
But that brings, doesn't that, I mean, okay, but that brings like a stillness within you and a presence. I mean, does it not? I mean, people think martial arts are just, you know, Bruce Lee, Hong Kong Fooey, let's, you know, well, you could do that if you wanted to. However, but there is something about it. I mean, years ago, I did do Tai Chi. I did. And one thing that got me, that shocked me, it was so calm and slow. Okay. Every movement. And for the first time, this physical body and this mind had to slow down.
Exactly.
And it was that, what's going on here? So I can understand, you know, how that, I mean, I know where you've got to today. We'll get there, guys. I know most of you know Randy, but we'll get there. But that must have had a massive, with the previous experience, doing the martial arts and going into that space, it must have shifted your consciousness. It must have done something.
Yes, it did none of that.
What did it do to you? You were doing a Bruce Lee down the street, were you?
Yeah, no, in Shaolin Kung Fu, this is something that, you know, of course, the movies and everything doesn't relate. And that's that the first 6 years you do physical martial arts.
Yeah.
And then you move to the internal martial arts. And internal martial arts is energy arts. And that's why I'm an energy doctor. And that's why to this day, I teach energetic medicine and energetic martial arts. And there are very few teachers of energetic martial arts. I studied with people. It had become very esoteric at that point, and I would travel around the universe and find these people and study with them.
Yeah.
But it had the exact opposite. It gave me energy. And of course, I already had enough to be a pain to all my teachers and everybody else in the world. And this just amplified it because now
I went still and you went rampant. There, look at that.
Yeah. I mean, I had access to all the energy of the universe. And so now the next step occurred kind of in conjunction. I moved to LA and when I was in early 20s, and to go to another teacher back then, you had to have a letter of introduction. This is Chinese system. So I was introduced to Grandmaster Arky Wong in LA, and I went to mastering, wrote a letter, and I was able to go study with him. And another important lesson, I got in class, and I'm always curious and want to ask. And in the first class in Chinese teaching, he showed a technique and walked off. And I go, wait a minute, what about? And smack, you get hit. And I go, but I have a smack, you get hit. And his son is standing next to him and goes, no questions. And that's true, because at some point, there's no more questions. You have to learn to move forward. So that was an important lesson. We talk about lessons.
I can imagine getting slapped around a few times. You see, when I did the Tai Chi, I wasn't there for long, but it was all I needed on my path just to stop the stillness. I did feel the energy. I still can do the energy. I can still do it, but it was this shift in me that was like, I couldn't understand it at the time, the power of it. But obviously, you, as you would, Randy, because you're a troublemaker. I know you are. You went off until you had to be slapped to stop.
You're right. Exactly. I had too much energy, and the result of that was I got to where I didn't sleep.
Yeah.
And I realized that was a problem.
Yeah.
And so, after a while, and so they had a TV program. And things going on in LA, and there was a place called Larchmont Center. I think it still exists, and they advertised yoga as a way to calm your mind.
Yoga, okay.
Yeah, yoga. And so I thought, okay, so two things happened. Mastering said, look, I'm not going to be here to teach you internal arts, because that's the progression from the external fighting. So if you get a chance, study Kundalini yoga. Now, I'm 18, 19 years old, and I go looking around all the books and libraries because there wasn't no internet. And the only place that taught Kundalini yoga was in India. And so I thought, well, I have to go to India to further my studies. And but they said yoga, and I went to the yoga classes with Hatha yoga, and I could sleep again. And so, but I always remember the imperative that Master Ng gave me, Master George Ng, to study Kundalini yoga.
Yes.
Because it's an internal martial art.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Carmel later, mid-20s or early 20s, there was a lady at one of the little colleges, Monterey Junior College, and she had a little sign up, Kundalini yoga classes. Mm-hmm. And I walked up and I said, sign me up. And she goes, well, don't you want to know about it? And I go, no, I was told to study this. So here we go. Remember that blind faith.
Yeah.
And this is really where things got really strange. I went to that class. It was an hour-long class. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of it, we laid down, and you lay down to rest and on your back. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I could hear somebody going, come back, come back, come back. And I thought, no, right? Like, no, yeah. I'm good right where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And so I kept hearing this, and finally I opened my eyes, and Satkirtankar was holding my feet and rubbing my feet. And she looked at me and she goes, oh, you're back. And I go, well, yeah, I mean, where was I? I had no clue, right? And she goes, well, I have to go. You know, I have to leave, and you're back, so you're okay. And I go, how long have we been gone? She goes, or been out? She goes, 2.5 hours.
Wow.
So for 2.5 hours, I was wandering the universe. Wow. and we'll skip to very recently, like, you know, in the last 10 years, I died about 7 times. Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah. And I died about 7 times. Now, that whole period of about 10 days, I wasn't here. I was out roaming the universe. And then one day I heard a voice again, and like I wake up and go, where the heck am I? All right. And like, why am I here? It's like, oh, back again, right? Yeah. So those two events are kind of connected. Yeah. And to be able to wander the universe free of consciousness, free of self, mm-hmm. is very different thing, we'll call it. So at that point, I really started studying both. I would do 5 hours of martial arts and about 5 hours of yoga a day. Yeah. And then the rest of the time I was working and then not sleeping again, 2 or 3 hours. I did that for years. And very interesting. I didn't age during that time period, from about 22 to 30 something. Mm-hmm. Lived in an ashram, kept my studies up, kept looking and doing everything. Mm-hmm. And so again, I read all the time. I read probably 4 or 5 books a week minimum, and plus a whole bunch of other things, articles, now podcasts and stuff. But so that's really where it all got started.
Wow.
And
I mean, come on, I pump the brakes there. I've got to say, you were nothing but devoted. You were a devoted disciple of your masters. I mean, that is quite, to have that, I mean, gosh. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, as I said, I'm not surprised you've, at the end of all of this, you are doing what you're doing, because that was one, I perceive it as quite a strong journey, committed, you know, absolutely 100% committed. Did you know what you were doing this for whilst you were going through that? I know you know now where you are, but while you're going through such commitment and loyalty to this form of being, did you know where it was going to go?
No, there wasn't any goal in mind. What was going on with me, though, is that somehow I had avoided the seductive nature of all these religions, cults, ideas, groups. Well, I mean, I was around everybody from Ken Keyes, Be Here Now, to San Francisco, to the swamis and yogis and martial arts, whatever.
Yeah.
But I avoided the seductive, the hypnotic, and the glamorization that they use. I recognized all those things.
Yeah.
So we would call them celebrities or some spiritual being. And then I'd go, well, if that was true, you didn't need to be hypnotic. You didn't need to be glamorizing what you did or what you do. And so during that course, I picked up autobiography of a yogi. And Yogananda was very not seductive, very not glamorization. It was very much like, this is something you can do. And of course, then that gets into like Bhagavad Gita. I run across the Hare Krishnas, and of course listen to John Lennon, and
Did you listen to Alan Watts?
Who?
Alan Watts.
I actually met him, I think, back then. I mean, I went to everything.
He was a major part of my journey of realization. He was just one of them. There was Papa G, then recently Muji was adding to it, and all the way back. But Alan Watts, because I think I was coming through academia, and it was just with the social determinants that my personality come in with, I could relate to Alan Watts. And I love humor. To me, I just have humor all the time. And he was so funny, but he would get that message across. Whoa.
Right.
So very powerful, very powerful.
Yeah, I would go see all of them came to LA, all of them came to San Francisco, and all of them came to Carmel.
I know he lived there. He eventually, I think he lived there eventually, but he was UK like me, and he went and it's not fair. Yeah. You go on.
Yeah, so these are all events that added up to some way to perceive and interact with the universe in a way different from other people. And again, all along, it was developing to be able to handle and wield the energy. So that's why it's EnergyDoktor. That's my name. That's what I do. But the next set of occurrences is there was a book written called The Secret Life of Plants. And Marcel Vogel and Peter Thompson wrote it. Marcel Vogel wasn't his real name, it was his wife's last name. But in Monterey, they had a thing called the Monterey, Round Table or something like that. And I saw an ad, like 2 lines, Monterey Round Table meeting at a Silmar, 7:30 tonight. So I went up and banged on the door. And this guy opened the door and goes, well, who are you? And I go, well, I'm here for the meeting. He goes, well, this is a closed meeting. And a lady walked up, she's in her 80s, named Jessica. And she took one look at me and goes, get in here. Right? And so I walked in, I go, what is this? And she goes, this is a meeting of all the West Coast psychics. We all get together twice a year and have a little meeting for ourselves, and the public's not invited. And I go, well, thank you for letting me in. She just laughed. She goes, you've been here before. So for the next 3 years, I hung out with this group. And these are the ones that were consulting with the president and around, all of them were there. But Marcel Vogel started teaching a form of energetic healing. And it was showing the resonance of, like, if you held a pack of cigarettes, and your energy field shrunk, and if you held something beneficial, it expanded. And he would demonstrate that, and we did exercises and things. And but in Secret Life of Plants, he talks about plants have emotions, plants have feelings, plants have conscious thought. Well, that coincided with my Native American growing up. I already knew that. So a lot of these things, as approached through it, I would tell people, and I'll get to that later. I tell them, I already know this. I learned it in a different way. And I may not have articulated it in the way you do, but do have some knowledge or experience of it.
I seem to have a thing with plants. It's just, and even up to this day, and in the one in the front room, for me, they're alive, and there's an energy, and I know it sounds really freaky, but there's a conversation. There's something, and I do have that with plants. I do. I don't know why. But yeah, I do have a connection with plants. I see them and feel them, and it's like, when I say I hear them, but I don't hear them with the physical ear, just if that makes sense. It's a resonance sort of. But yeah, I do with that. Yes, I do with plants. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I just thought I'd throw that in there, just to say. Yeah. Go on, Randy. Keep going.
Well, so now here we go, back to the ashrams, back to the yoga, back to the martial arts. I went through a divorce, so I just went back and started doing all the things I was doing.
Yeah, we all go through divorces. It has to be done.
Yeah. So that carried me to a point where I was walking through the orchard at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to sadhana, go to yoga. And I just stopped. And I said, if I continue down this path, I'll live here the rest of my life and nothing else will basically change. So I turned around and walked back and packed up all my stuff and left.
Wow, brilliant.
So I turned my back on it because we're not meant to isolate. We're not meant to move into some limited view of the universe. And I have a very expansive view that includes a lot more than any one viewpoint. And so then I also realized that there were starting to be very few elder teachers available to me.
Yeah.
They had died or gone away. And so back to the martial arts all over the United States looking for teachers. And that's where I started picking up these really esoteric energy arts of being able to influence people or their health or energetic state, and it applied to businesses too. So I did that for a while, and finally I got to a point where there's really not anybody left. So I have to be able to interrogate the universe for the information I want, and to be able to download or change those aspects of my consciousness that I want to change, and on my own recognizance, on my own efforts. And the energy work gave me an ability to do that. Now, most people don't have that. They have to have an external action or something. So I was rocking right along, and I started to teach energy medicine. And it was really funny. Another quick story. Dr. Church came to me one day and said, there's somebody teaching what you do. And I go, that's not possible because I don't know anybody that knows this, right? And so she goes, no. And she showed me, and there was a Shaolin martial artist in California that had started teaching it. And we were told to not do that, right? Kind of like under penalty of death, you're not supposed to teach some of the things I know, okay? And so I decided at one point, normally you would take a student and teach him, and then he'd carry on the tradition. Well, I didn't have students coming to me. And so I'll just start teaching it. So she goes, well, you need to go see this guy. And I go, well, I don't have the money or, whatever. So she marched in my office 2 days later and goes, here's our tickets. I paid for everything, flights, everything, you're going. I go out there, I meet this guy, and he starts talking. And I go, I know all this. I've taught Shaolin Kung Fu, right? And so at the first break, he stands by the door and I'm walking by and he goes, you study martial arts? I go, Shaolin Kung Fu, 35 years. He goes, Shaolin Kung Fu, 35 generations. And I went, ooh.
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
And I said, what? So tell me what happened. He goes, I have no students, so I start teaching openly. I go, did you get death threats? And he goes, yeah, initially, because he was still connected back to the lineage. And I said, well, they don't know about me. So I just started teaching it, and I've been teaching it ever since. I used to teach it quite openly through seminars and stuff. And now I occasionally take students if they're dedicated enough.
Yeah. Are you able to mute your phone, sweetie? Is it your phone? Something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I had it.
No, I heard it the first time and I thought it was me, so I muted mine. I forgot as well.
Let me.
Can I just ask you, like, when I want to go back just a little bit, when you were walking up to do your yoga, and at that point you turned around and walked away, and which obviously, that resonates with me. But I wanted to add to that. I've found through my life when I've done things like that, and it wasn't for yoga, darling, because I don't put my body in positions it's not meant to be. You know what I mean? So don't even go there. But however, And I come to realize it was like something, or my higher self, whatever, saying you're stagnating. There's more.
Right, exactly.
Did you find that there's a point where you realize I'm stagnating? And like you said, we're not meant to just stay or live in a cave or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what.
Stagnation. And once if you stagnate, then that's it. Then you blocked yourself for some time, and I just wanted to check with you.
Yeah. What you've done is accepted a limited point of view of the universe.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Right. And if you have and why it goes against you, because if you have a recognition that you're not the limited being, you're unlimited, that stagnation doesn't fit in. You just go, right, I'm not doing this no more. Even if you don't consciously, I've done things that I wasn't consciously aware I'd made the decision to do it. It just goes like, no, not doing this no more. Bye, off.
Yeah.
But then later realized I was stagnating. It was time to move on. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There's an important lesson there I learned at around 19. I refer to it. Hopefully the girl doesn't take offense. I call it the Helen Hope Busby effect, right?
You're wicked, you are good. Do tell.
We'll mention names.
No
when I was 19, I was at a college, and I asked her to go sit on the lawn at a little concert, and a very beautiful woman from Texas. And we sat down and talked for a few minutes, and about 10 minutes, she stood up and goes, "This isn't working for me," and walked off. And I tell that story and people go, some people get mad or thought she's rude. No, that's one of the greatest spiritual lessons you can learn in life. If this is not working for you, you can walk off. Absolutely. And you don't have to explain it. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to apologize. And if you can come to that point in your life, you have arrived. Because you recognize what is beneficial. And that's what we call the discernment of the truth. And it's not. So those things all kind of coincided. And then, anyway, I think that's important. But then around, I don't know, 50 or something, somebody goes, the same routine. I went to, who's the guy? Anyway, he writes a lot of books. He died.
He writes a lot of books.
And not important. But anyway,
excited to hear the story.
I went to a lecture by. And during the lecture, he said, well, I just was able to talk to a person I really like, and his name was Dr. David Hawkins. And he held up a book called Power versus Force. And that's what I give to everybody to even start a conversation. You have to become familiar with these concepts so we can have a conversation. It's called commonality of language. And so anyway, they were sold out of the books up at the little bazaar, and I mentioned it in my yoga classes. So here we go. And in my yoga classes, one of the students heard me talking about the previous evening. And 3 or 4 days later, she showed up and gave me a copy of the book. She had ordered it. And so that was a game changer. And so then one of my other students said, hey, he's going to actually start a lecture series in Sedona, Arizona. And I go, well, I'd love to go to that, but I don't have the money or time. And here we go again. He comes back 3 or 4 days later and goes, I've got us tickets and cars.
You know what? That's it, Randy. I'm never bringing you back on the show again. No one ever comes up and says, I got tickets, I got money, just go and do it.
Yeah, that's happened 3 or 4 times in my life.
Randy, you do realize you can go off people sometimes. No, seriously, that's wonderful. I mean, I can see what's happening. I can see.
And I'm eternally grateful for all those people because they advance yourself, and we should have a gratitude for that.
Absolutely.
So I went to that first meeting. There were 24, 26 students in the whole place, Sedona Creative Life Center. And at the end of the lecture, I was like, whoa, and so I walked up to David and I go, I want you to know something. I already know all this, right? Being an ego, right? Yeah. I said, but I have to thank you tremendously for putting it in a format that allows me to utilize it. Yeah. And that's the key to all the books I've talked about and all the experiences. If you cannot find a way to utilize it, it's just more information. Yeah. And so I went to the next 8 years, 56 different lectures and this, that, and the other. And there were a couple of occurrences. I would take up to 20 of my students and stuff. And one of them, he said something, and I was writing it down. And somebody next to me goes, "Why are you writing that down?" And I go, "Because, wow, that's important." He goes, "He's already said it 26 times." You see what I mean? And I go, "Yes, but this time I heard it." And that is the important thing to realize, is that somebody can be talking, like I talk openly about the secret martial arts and all this stuff. And the reason is, if you can't hear it, it doesn't make any difference. And to hear it requires a level of consciousness and a level, some sort of level of attainment that allows you to interact with that information. And so,
I mean, that's just a light bulb in my head when you say, because he said it like 27 times, 24, but I've just heard it. A very similar thing, you know, when through my lifetime, when people are telling me something, whether it was in work capacity training or something, and they go, "Don't you listen?" And how many times I've said that, and you know, and you get that sort of thing. There's no understanding that sometimes you're not consciously in the right place to hear what you need to. Oh, it's not the right time. But when it is the right time, then you hear it. I don't know how to interpret this, but I do agree with you. When you hear it, and there's been many occasions, not all, that when I do hear it, I say exactly what you say. Well, I know that. And that's boom. Then I go, how do I know that? And then I think, oh my God, my ego's back, you know, or something like that. But the light bulb just went off, and I had to raise that. That is I think it's another crucial point that you've raised, a really good point that you've raised about that. I've only just heard him. And if we had a better ourselves in communication, that when we are talking to someone, to think they're not listening, they just haven't heard it yet.
Exactly.
That's all. So I just wanted to raise that one in. But thank you. Yeah, another point. Well done. Loving this.
So out of all that, I started teaching those aspects of what I had learned, and then interrelated it to what I taught. And you come up with a very powerful system to adjust people's consciousness and their health. That's what comes out of it. So I work on people to be healthy. I work on people to be themselves.
Do you teach them, sorry, I'm going to ask you the question because this is so fascinating. Do you teach them to heal themselves?
Well, you have your own energy.
Yeah.
So I call it the myth of the healer. You don't need a healer.
No.
You need access to your own energy. It's just that you can do that and take your time to do that through practices and
I'm with
all
you.
the things there. Or you can have somebody like me that's able to reach in there and change it.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I've changed people's everything from cancer to brain, whatever. To
can you sort out my hips? I need my hips sorted out. Randy, book me.
And some people I haven't been able to. See, that's the myth of the healer. It's like some people I can help and some people I can't. And that has been the source of my research for the last 10 or 20 years about why I can help some people and some people can't.
Can I question you on that? Because I watched a documentary or something, when I was doing something. And there was this woman, she had cancer, and they put an ultra scan on it, and they had 3 of these doctors, or I think they were like martial arts people, somewhere like that. And anyway, through what they were doing, the energy, you visually saw it shrink and whatever. But however, the reason I've raised this is they said if the recipient doesn't believe it will work, it won't work. So would that answer that some people you can't heal because they don't really believe it will happen or not?
Well, belief can or cannot be a factor.
Okay.
It can or cannot. But one of the things we get into is what's called permission. I work on a lot of people. I see somebody walking by and go, wow, their hips are hurting.
Shut up about hips. I've got 2 of them.
Are they in pain right now?
Yeah, well, no, actually, they're not while I'm talking to you. But as soon as I get up,
Yeah.
As soon as I
Yeah.
get up, they go, oh God.
That's pain is something easy for me to change in people.
Well, that's it. I'll keep you after the show.
Okay. Yeah. And then so anyway, I began integrating, and now we get back to the same thing of at some point you have to be able to quiz the universe.
Yeah.
And so we say all knowledge is there. It's just whether you choose to access it.
When you say, sorry to interrupt you, because this is really interesting, and I've got to ask the questions as an interviewer. When you say quiz the universe, what do you mean? How does one, for the audience, quiz the universe? What does that mean? You
present a question, right? That's it.
That's it.
That's it. And here comes the key. Like in Native American, whatever, growing up Native American, the idea is to be able to learn to listen. So in a conversation, like you would say something, and if you listen to elders talk, they'd say something, and then it's like, it might be a minute, might be 10 minutes before they respond. And what they're doing, they have to sort through it and relate it and try to figure out exactly what's being said, and whether that you're communicating what needs to be said, or whether you're, and then you would respond. We call that listening. Now, the second exercise is listen to plants. And now remember, Secret Life plants. You learn to listen to them. You learn to communicate. And then in Native American lore, again, we call our cousins, the plants, the animals, the insects. You learn to communicate with all those. And the side story, one of my students that for a long time trained special forces people, and he became one of the top ones. And when he came out of the military, he goes, what do I do next? And I said, well, you never had the benefit of growing up the way I did. But he goes, well, I'm going to go to a tracking school up in the Northwest. And I go, well, the first thing they're going to tell you is to teach you to learn to listen to trees. And he just laughed, and he went up there and he called me the day he got there, and he goes, the trackers, the Native American, he told me we need to be able to listen to trees. Like all the plants talk to you. They'll tell you where the animals are, or, they're very chatty, right? So that listening aspect, and now we'll go to your favorite subject. How are you going to talk to an ET if you can't talk to a plant or a tree or a dog or a horse?
Yeah, exactly.
And I can talk to all of them. Exactly. But the most important thing is I can listen to. I can hear.
It does. You're quite right. I mean, you've raised a really valid point there. If you don't listen, you can't talk.
Yeah.
Vice versa. It's a catch-22, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a catch-22. If someone said to me, how did you learn to listen to your plants? And I would go, I have no idea.
Exactly.
I have no idea how that happened. It just happened. But you know what? I've always been close to plants, but the most crucial thing that's happened in the past year for me is, I call them borises, spiders. Yeah. Well, in the UK, we don't really get tarantulas, but I call them tarantulas. And I always did have this massive phobia. Anyway, then I moved on my own in a bungalow, and in the country, and they were tarantulas. Well, I don't know what happened. One looked at me and it died of shock. But in that, I don't know, well, that's what I presumed. But in that time, there was a communication. I can't explain it. And I felt sad that it was so fearful of this big, I don't know how it went. It was just, but then when they'd come in from outside, which is the country, and I'd see them, I'd get initial, and I go, okay, me and you need a conversation. So what and I couldn't believe it, Randy. I'd get a sheet of paper or a cup. I'll say, right, now you get in there, and then I'm taking, they did it every single time. But what happened the first time, I don't know what it was, but it come running towards me. It was huge. Yeah. Country spiders, they eat well. Okay. Right. And I was like, ooh, and it curled up and died. And something happened. I could feel something. And since then, they hang on the shower and I go, piss off, and I don't have it. Just go away. And now I say, I'm coming through, don't even bother coming by my feet. Yeah. And people may think, well, you're mad. No, it's an unbelievable experience to have, to get a wild spider and say, call on that paper and I'm taking you, and you'll be back into nature. And it does exactly as you say.
Yes, because they have consciousness. Now, one of the tricks to that is using imagery. And that's where we see them in the mind's eye, see them crawling up on the paper and crawling in the cup, or we see us taking them outside and leaving them where they're supposed to be, right? And so in animals, communication, you can communicate with pictures in your mind. And
I'm just trying to think, did I image it? I'm trying to remember. How did that come about? Was I rolling an image? I can't recall. I can't recall.
Right. So they'll respond to that. I have all kinds of animals will come up to me, little kids, babies.
Yeah, I know children come up to me, nasty little things, just terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that,
Yeah. One of the interesting things a few years back, I was building a house and I had a big pecan tree out back, and I could feel somebody looking at me. And I turned my head and there's a squirrel literally right here.
Oh, yes.
Climbed down the branch and it started chittering at me.
Yeah.
And so I started mimicking the sounds.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And boy, we had to have a heck of a conversation all day long every time I'd walk out.
Yeah, I've had the squirrels, and they've let me film them, and they've been talking. And I remember there was one day, and it would never let me get too close, but one day I stood outside and he sat up like that, and he just looked.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm talking in my head, just saying, what do you think you're looking at? I buy the nuts, and I do. So I'm having this conversation in my head, and then it looks at me and it goes like that. I've had it with the big wood pigeons as well.
Yeah.
And kites, we got kites this big, and I'd be out there with the food, and they'd go and I'd say, come, and I couldn't see them come. Then all of a sudden they come, and I go, well, come down, the food's there, I'll stand back. Don't scratch me, because I'm putting it up on a high, because they've got these tannins. And I've had friends round and said, the kites will come. Are you coming? Vroom, they start circling like, dinosaurs in the sky. And how does that happen? I have no idea. None. Don't know.
Well, once you ever open up what I call line of communication, it's like, it's always open. Crows are that way with me. One day in Sedona, one of the big crows there, I was eating lunch and talking to a bunch of people, and it literally starts walking around and comes around the railing, comes over and like steps on my shoulder. This thing's huge.
Wow.
And people I'm talking to, their eyes are gigantic.
Yeah.
And they go, there's a crow there. And I go, just ignoring, they're beggars. They just want food. And I reach down and get a piece of food. And I went on the conversation. Now, to me, that's normal, what I call Native American, that the animals know who you are, you know who they are, and whatever. But the squirrels, no matter where I go, if I start chittering at them, they'll come right up to me. They'll run right up to me.
I don't try to mimic them. I feed them. They've got names, actually. My favorite, Kevin. He's called Kevin. I've done videos of him and his wife. I just have fun with them. But one thing I can never explain, no one trained me to do it, Randy. It just it was an innate, natural thing. But the big thing was when the spider, this big Boris, I call spiders Boris. You can guess why, can't you? Yeah. And it just stopped, and I was like, oh my God. And I realized somehow it was a sentient, conscious, whatever.
Oh yeah.
And it was that, and the plants, I've always with them, but in the past year and recently, when I've gone to them and I hear them and I'm going, but it's not in my ear, and I still can't.
No. Yeah.
And people say, what do you mean? What's happening? I go, I don't know, but I can hear it.
When you said it's not in your ear, now you've opened up, how do you ask questions of the universe? And I call it Interrogating the Universe, and I listen for the answer where that occurs. And so and that's why, like, I make formulas, Native American medicine. I give people for healing and stuff. And it's like, how do you know what goes in that? Well, a chemist, and most pharmaceuticals occur through the intellect.
Yeah.
And beyond the intellect has always been forbidden and made fun of, and it's occult, and really that's where true knowledge starts. Yeah. True knowledge starts above 500 on Hawkins scale. Yeah. It occurs above the intellect. Yeah. And above the intellect is the ability to what I call do an information query, to do a search. So I find out all kinds of information because it's available. And that's one of the things.
But you know what, Randy? At the moment, I don't. Sometimes I've tried to ask a question, but I don't. Right, I'm going to do it, and I don't have a question.
Yeah.
What's
we call it reform, surfing. We call that surfing the universe.
I'm surfing. I don't have a question. You know, and normally when I sit there like that, like earlier on today, I said, right, okay, and then I just get this joy. Just joy, and I'm smiling and I'm happy and I feel the energies, but I don't, I have normal human questions, but I don't have a question. There's nothing, and okay. I don't know if that's wrong, but I don't have a question.
No. One of the things, like back to Marcel Vogel and that group, one of the things they taught us is there were a bunch of people there you didn't know, but you could walk up to anybody and go, I need to tell you something, or do you need to tell me something?
Yeah.
Right. And like, it wasn't rudeness. It's like, I need to tell you this. And I used to do that, and then that gets you in a lot of trouble because you go, I won't tell stories, but anyway, like, do I need to tell you something? So now I want to know something. So I ask the question, universe, and then does the universe have anything it needs to tell me right now?
You've just given me another light bulb. Hold on. Stay there. I run a couple of groups, and in one of the groups, there's mediums. I'm just assisting them, but it's more of awakening to.
I'm a double XL.
Yeah, you know what I mean, don't you? Shut up. Just shut up. Anyway, but when I'm in the Zoom room and the pictures are up, it happens all the time. And I just look, and then I say, you need to tell me something.
Right.
And I know it. Now, you've just given me goosebumps there, because I do it all the time in the Zoom rooms. And I thought, you've got something to say, haven't you? And they go, how do you know? You must be psychic, But I do experience that in the Zoom. Yeah.
Yes, I have people that their sensitivity allows them to know that they need me to tell them something, or what I'm seeing.
So am I ready now? Am I ready now to, when I do find a question? Am I ready to give this a go, to ask?
Yeah, always. See, that's the thing. Remember back to Helen Hope Busby, is you don't need to apologize. You don't need to explain. You don't need to, like, why am I asking the question? Or it's just, I just ask the question out of intense curiosity and willingness to know the answer. And then, and again, like all these points we've talked about, is to see if any of it has relevance to moving forward in life, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the only questions I would ask. It's about journey. It wouldn't be anything else. For my highest excitement, or what makes me happy, or but at the moment, I mean, whenever I do connect to beings or whatever it is, universe, it doesn't really matter what you label it, and this energy comes up, and it's joy. I start laughing and smiling, and I go, that's it. That's as far as I get, and I just go, what's going on then? This is just joy, and I can sit there and in silence, and I'm just laughing, and not all the time, but it does happen quite a lot now. Yeah. So
joy is what I teach. And again, I give reference to Hawkins because he put it all together in a chart of consciousness. 540 is a number ascribed to a state of joy. And I teach people that's it. That's where you're supposed to exist. That's where children exist. We lose it, and hopefully at some point we can come back to it. But you start every morning with the intention, if you want to do that, I'm going to be joyful today. And
I don't even have to think it. It just happens. And you know what I do? I have to ground myself sometimes. I have to go, right, get serious, watch a program, do something, go make a coffee. And I'm walking and I can still feel it. And I really have to work hard because you can just sit there in it and really just smile. And it's an energy. So I have to ground myself a lot. It just comes by itself. When, you know, I could be anywhere and it'll turn itself on. So I don't control it in any way, but it's more and more, it's constant. It's constant most of the time now. And I have to distract myself away.
Yeah, and it should be. So congratulations, because to arrive at that state is a very high state to be on this planet. To go beyond it, now you're back into the caves and apart from humanity and things like that. But joyfulness allows you to interact with people in the universe in a way that is that is healthy. I'll put it that way. So.
And also when I'm in that, which is a lot, even though, you know, the physical body has its dis-ease energies, that dissipates while I'm in that. It doesn't, there is no pain. And and I keep, you know, and I'm in it going, because I also, I want to feel my physical body with no pain, because it's 24/7. And then, you know, then I'll get joyful and there's no pain. And I'm aware that's what it feels like. I forgot, you know, but I can't stay in that joy all the time, because I keep thinking there's a big joke somewhere and I'm just not getting the joke.
Yeah, the joke is the universe will go, yeah, well, we'll just see how long you can stay there. Watch this.
Yeah, exactly.
So then life comes after you to erase joy. Yeah. And then the trick is go home that night, don't tell anybody, and go back to a state of joy. That's what I do. Right?
Well, you know, and I go, my face aches because you smile. I mean, it doesn't, the muscles are well exercised. I go into a gym. I mean, the face, I'm holding my cheeks down because your physical body goes into the vibration. And you've got like this really freaky, scary grin on your face, and you're thinking, I cannot go out the door like this. I'm not going joying down there. But my heart, it's love, it's joy, and I feel the energy with it. There's an energy. I feel that.
Yeah, this is internal energy flow, internal martial arts. Yeah. It's the basis of why I call myself an energy doctor.
So you're saying that little bit of Tai Chi I did way back, that could have been my catalyst.
It could have turned it on.
It could have turned it on back then took long enough to get here, but hey-ho, decades later, I'm in that point. But I don't know anyone that goes around in this joy. So at the moment, I feel very, you know, Billy No Mates. But you spoke of it.
Well, I required of all my business partners, they have to stay and maintain a level of joy.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you get caught up in all the negativity of everything. Yeah. Who wants to deal with that? I thought we were here to make money, you know. So
well, I mean, you know, as I said, I haven't found anyone, never mind any partners or anything, but it's just joy. And I keep thinking, and I have thought, well, what if someone visits me when I'm in this? It's bliss. Joy or bliss. Bliss is bliss. Right. I can call it bliss. And it's all encompassing but I can't function in it. You can't you can't function. And I really got to go, I'm gonna go and look at my phone. Ground myself back. And it's like a bit of a game now. I feel like these beings or somebody's having a bit of a game with me with it. Yeah.
Well, that's because you're open. In a state of joy, you're open to whatever movements of the universe, right? So
anyway, moving along.
Yeah. So finally I get to the point of like where I'm at now is
where are you now?
I'm researching life force. It's the key to everything. It occurs at conception, not birth. That's a myth. And there's so much information there, because if you have life force, if you look at like a 2-year-old, they're healthy. And then I'm 72 and I'm trying to be healthy. There's a difference. They're healthy. I'm trying.
Healthy.
And I'm trying to be healthy. Well, I keep working again on the energy flows, and that appears to help.
Yeah.
So of all the anti-aging out there, and there's all these people want to use creams and this and that and that.
It's rubbish.
No, energy flow is a secret to life force. Life force is secret to youth, and nobody really explores it. You know, I've been.
Well, I always say, hold on. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's always been. I've noticed, and I've taught my children. I have 6 children, and they all look very young for their age. And I've been blessed with good skin all my life until I'm sort of hitting the old age now. And people say, well, how? I say, because you see people with this wrinkly skin and they're getting plastic surgery or you know, they've got the creams, is they frown and they're miserable. Their energy is low.
Right.
I'm more of a laughter, humor.
Yeah. Yes.
And I that was a trait I had to learn from very young in age to get through life, you know. But I tend to bring laughter and humor, And I think if you go around with a miserable disposition and a negative, you'll attract it. And I think it will affect.
Oh yes. You know, it's called a field effect.
Yeah.
And if we take joyfulness as a field of consciousness, or state of consciousness, if you involve yourself in that versus negativity, there's going to be a long-term effect on the way you look, the way you feel.
I say, okay, hold on, I'm going to keep looking at you. You look younger.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't got no big wrinkles or, you know, I haven't got any. But no, it's... But I think there is, I mean, I don't know, I haven't studied this, so I can't speak what I don't know. But what I do know is through life experience, is that if you're of a more of a positive, loving, kind, gratitude being to others and smile, then your physical body tends to relate to that.
Yes.
And if you're a miserable mother fudger and you frown, you know, all these lines come and you fade away, you know. So it's not true then, you know. The reason I'm not skinny, because I used to say, I was taught, if you're overweight, it's healthy. You don't fall down the manholes and the drains, and then you don't wither away. You know, the things that we're told, that is a load of rubbish. However, one thing it is true is if you've got a heart of gratitude and love and empathy, and, you know, listen, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's a process that we work through. You don't just wake up one morning and you go, oh, I got all. No, you have to do the work on yourself, don't you, to allow this energy to come up. That before we finish, could you touch upon that? Doing the work on yourself, on the individual self, how to help raise our energy levels or frequencies to ultimately experience the joy that me and you've touched upon today.
Well, one of the things I teach is the only toxic environment's your mind. And so the ability to make a choice, back to the beginning when we start the conversation, the ability to choose is the ability to eliminate the toxicity of the beliefs, and it gets into what I call geomorphic programming. And the more you can let go of that, and that's very interesting, because I learned to not be so connected to all the programs, cults, religions, whatever. I learned it through rock and roll and country and Western music. So,
oh my God, I'm not a lover. I'm a lover of reggae. I'm reggae or classical. Reggae or classical music, but not.
The same thing is that there is knowledge there. That's what people, they want to, it always amazes me that if you have some spiritual teacher and they get convicted of being frisky or stealing money or something, and they go, well, they want to invalidate that person, right? There's knowledge does not have a pedigree, is what I call it. We keep wanting to do that. Oh, Alan Watts said this. Oh, you know, no, the knowledge is just a piece of information that you can incorporate or not. It has no pedigree. It has no importance unless it's important to you at the time. That's it.
And you don't need a PhD or
No.
an MBE from the Queen or anybody.
No.
You know, I've always said I've received knowledge from people you would never think you could receive knowledge from.
Right.
From the homeless, from children, from mental health.
Yes.
Forest. And you just sit and you're having a conversation, because I do attract the mental health when I go out. I sit down and I just do, it's just one of just me. And they start talking and, you know, I just love them to bits. It's like I communicate with them. And, you know, and they come out with the most profound insight. In between the jargon, like, do you have a cigarette? Do you have any money? And what? In between, they come out with something, boom. And where did that
there's a couple of things. I refer to them as saints. Saint Bon Jovi, Saint Tina Turner. You know, what's love got to do with it, right? And everybody want to talk about love and the heart. Tina Turner comes along. What's love got to do with it? And then, you know, like Mick Jagger, it's like war is just a shot away. Well, that's our current environment. You can decide what kind of shot, but anyway, I had
being funny. That was too funny. Stop it. You were very quick there. Stop.
And then just in conclusion, you come to recognize truth. You come to recognize love. You come to recognize some kind of like benevolent state of being, I'll call it. And I was at a 3-day yoga thing, and I was giving a talk to a bunch of people, and I could feel this child crawling up my back, crawling up my pants, and you know, I was talking, all these people's eyes are getting big again, and she crawls up and sits on my shoulder, and it's a little like 3-year-old, 4-year-old girl. And it wasn't her mother with her. She had a friend taking care of her and brought her to that. And her guardian says, you know, come over here. And she goes, no, just no. And she was perfectly happy where she was. And then she said, well, so I finished talking. She said, well, come on now. She goes, no, I want to go hear the music. And I said, well, can I walk over 5 steps and listen to music a little bit? Because I knew she needed to go. And so we did that, and I came back, and I turned around and picked her up and handed her back to the lady, and she grabbed back hold of me, and she goes, I need to tell you something. We're back to that again. And she goes, I love you, I'll miss you, and I'll remember you always. That's the words of a 4-year-old, you see? And that's all the people that have ever helped you. That's why we're eternally grateful to them, because of that feeling that comes out of it.
That is one of the, I had a homeless, severely mental health guy, bless him. And anyway, he asked for something and I gave it. And it wasn't the words he said, it was the energy that came out, and it threw me. And he said, God bless you for what you've just done. And it was like that, like a, and I'm going, what? And it was like, I wanted to cry.
Right.
Like I felt like I'd been given something.
Yes.
I was giving him, and that, you know, and I wanted to cry. I could feel I was welling up in the street, you know, and that's happened a few times differently, but I felt that. And I used to say to my children when they were younger, if you ever see a homeless person or anything like that, as long as, you know, they're not dangerous, but however, I used to say to them, it could be an angel in disguise bringing you a message. Be kind, be grateful, you know? So that happens. And that is, you can't even explain what it does to you. You can't share. It's too imagine.
Well, we need to hear that.
Right?
That you're loved, that you'll be remembered.
Yes.
Okay? and that you appreciate it. So I
Maybe
appreciate
they are, maybe they
Thank
are angels. Who
Thanks.
knows? We don't
Yeah.
know. We
Yeah.
don't know. It could be anything. It could be anything we want it to be. But that is a side of human experience that many don't experience because we say stagnated.
Yes, exactly.
Stagnated. And and sometimes if you don't get out of your stagnation, I know the universe or consciousness will come in and will shift you, whether you like
Yes.
it.
Yes.
It will move you where you're supposed to go. And I've always said, and I've said it before, when I was younger, and I used to tell my children, don't be like me, God would say, as in the metaphor God, Gloria go right, Gloria would go left, always. Yeah. And round the houses, and then eventually end up right and go, shit, I've done it again. But yeah, it's Randy, it has been, and I knew it would be, and you did behave this time. You were very good, even though a few of your jokes did come in. Yes, the shot. I got that.
Yeah, I have a lot more if we can have another conversation.
Oh, me and you can go. We'll do another show. We'll have more and more and more. We didn't start shouting at each other, and I was going, stop it, Randy, you're being naughty. Behave yourself. You're dropping names that you're not supposed to drop. It was so informative. Thank you for sharing your beautiful journey, and I know it's not over. And you've got to come back on the show. That's obvious. That's going to happen. And we'll dig up something else. Guys. Randy is a lovely soul. However, when he sends you messages, it's like commands. Do this, do that. I'm going, who said what? He gives you commands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
I'm real bad about, like, if I'm finished talking to somebody, I'll just hang up.
Yeah, this is him.
And people go, well, you're rude. And I go, no, I'm through.
Yeah, so. This is him. And I got this last time, but he knows I'll eat him alive if he does it again. I had an email today because I went to send, obviously, over. And it was like, do. Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, Randy, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I have a lot of fun. All right.
Yeah. Don't go yet. Until the next time, everybody, thank you for watching Open Minds. See you next week. Thank you for listening. Bye.